Hello there, everyone, and welcome once again to our wonderful pod where pop culture meets PR. On this episode, listeners, she's the gift that keeps on giving. We are, of course, talking about Meghan Markle on this episode because Meghan has been in the news once again. Now, before we went live on this episode, Jackie dropped me a text from Vegas. Let's clear that up straight away. Let's address the elephant in the room because Jackie, as you will see if you are watching this episode of the podcast, Jackie is not where she normally is. She's not in her recording studio. She's not in the podcast bunker. She is over on the other side of the world. She's in Vegas. Before we get into this, Jackie, really quickly, what are you over in Vegas doing? Because I'm sure our listeners would love to hear. What are you over in Vegas and how is it going?
Well, I'm over in Vegas for a big conference that I'm speaking at called MAU. It's all basically about mobile marketing and something we don't talk a lot about, but this is where our particular specialization lies, is in digital communications. And for me, it's where PR is used within communication. So a lot of the stuff that people allude to with all the scandals that we talk about with bots and things like that on social media, and like with the Blake Lively case or the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp case, a lot of people talk about those things with the idea that all of this is smoke and mirrors. And it's actually not. It's very technical. It's all about digital platforms and software applications. And that's where we really do specialize and know quite a lot about. Although I talk about the principles of communication and PR on our podcasts, I do have a little bit of knowledge of how communications are evolving. This, speaking at conferences like this and coming to conferences like this keeps us ahead of the game in terms of where we tell our clients where they should be communicating, how they should be communicating, but really bringing it back down to all that very fundamental stuff, which is all about your messaging and how you frame your communications.
Could not have put it better myself. As a result, I obviously didn't try, and I'm glad I didn't try, but obviously it helps us over in Vegas as well. Vegas, glamorous, very glamorous Vegas.
Very glamorous. It's not such a glamorous flight over, I can tell you that much. I had a connecting flight to Charlotte, and then I flew from Charlotte to Vegas. It was...
Well, we're glad that you undertook that slog. We're glad you got there safely, and we're glad, obviously, we look forward to hearing more about how the conference goes, how MAU goes. But of course, you spoke there about messaging. You spoke there about communications. Someone who has had her own message to convey this week was Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle has been over in Switzerland. She's been speaking at the Lost Screen Memorial in Geneva. The Lost Screen Memorial commemorates people who have died after suffering digital harm and includes 50 illuminated light boxes, which each display a lock screen, a mobile phone lock screen image of a child who's lost their life because of online violence and digital harm. Now, Meghan Markle was there and she was addressing the World Health Organization. She had this to say. I'm sort of just taking one thing that she said here. For too long, we've accepted a dangerous bargain that modern connection must come at the cost of the innocence of childhood, that innovation excuses injury, that speed matters more than safety. Now, obviously, the message she's conveying, important message. But Jackie, you had your thoughts on this appearance. Some people are saying this, in inverted commas, was a royal tour of Switzerland, that, and the inverted commas are crucial there. They are important. What were your thoughts on this appearance? She got presented with a field vest, a World Health Organization field vest. There were lots of photographs. There was lots of visual communication as well as spoken word communication. What did you make of it? What were your thoughts on Meghan's appearance over in Geneva?
Well, it's not the first time she has appeared with the World Health Organization. There's obviously a little bit of a tie-in with that particular group. And from a communication standpoint and a positioning standpoint, I have to give a tick to their team to get her allied with and aligned with an organization that is a serious player. And there have been some critics of the World Health Organization because of their choice of Meghan as a spokesperson. I don't know whether I necessarily agree with those critics. Tom Sykes went all the way to Zurich to report live. And of course, I'm a massive Tom Sykes fan with his podcast, The Royalist, and he also has a Substack, The Royalist. And I do encourage anybody who's wanting to stay ahead of all of royal news. Tom is a really good source, and he has lots of connections, and he does lots of different pods with other podcasters like Paula Froelich and Shauna Kay and people like that. So he's a good person to follow. So he went there and he was live podding from the event. And of course, I was all over that. Even from Vegas, I was there tuning in, and I actually sort of sent him a little note going, "Hi from Vegas, Tom." So I was watching what he was saying, and he felt quite critical of the guys at the World Health Organization, because he was saying, and quite rightly, that Meghan is a divisive character, and he wasn't sure that they should be bringing her into their orbit because they are there to deal with really serious world health issues. And he also sort of mentioned they didn't exactly cover themselves with glory over the COVID crisis, which we all know about, which we all lived through. But I would go as far as to say I think I disagree with Tom, and I don't often disagree with him, but I do disagree with him on this. He also said that another criticism that Tom said was that he felt that social media and digital violence wasn't really a World Health Organization topic. He felt like things like COVID, things like the Ebola breakout that are happening right now, the hantavirus issues that are happening. He felt that those were the sort of issues that the World Health Organization should be addressing, and not the sort of social media, digital violence side of things. And again, I disagree, because this, for me, is possibly one of the worst world health epidemics that we see, that is caused by digital platforms. So me and Tom, let's have a debate about this. But I actually disagree with that as well. So my perspective is that bringing somebody like Meghan to an event like this, because she's championing this cause already, and that's work that she and Harry are outspoken about, is a good thing. I think it was the right thing for them to do. And I was hoping that Meghan would behave. I know it sounds terrible, but she comes in with so much criticism. I was hoping that she would get there, deliver a speech, do it very well, talk about an issue which is very serious with knowledge and gravitas, and use her platform to spread the word, let's say, about a serious issue. And I think she did. I actually do think that she spoke very, very well. And Tom Sykes said this as well. He was very complimentary of the way she delivered the message of her speech. That's one thing I do love about Tom. He is actually quite balanced. He's very opinionated, but he's very balanced. And, if somebody does well, he'll say that they did well. And he noted as well that she was somebody with a platform that could deliver this message. So that's my initial thoughts about this.
Actually, you speak about Tom and Tom Sykes and the Royalists, and obviously Jackie's invite, I extend as well. If you want to come on the podcast and debate, we would absolutely love that. I like to think we do the same to an extent. In fact, I like to think we do the same always. We're balanced. If someone does well, we like to send that up as much as we like to do our analysis and commentate and have our opinions on other things. And I'm inclined to agree with you. In fact, I definitely do agree with you. I thought she communicated very, very well. I thought the speech was excellent. And the speech is obviously about a very, very important thing. I also absolutely, by the way, agree with you that this is very much a World Health Organization and should be a World Health Organization focus, because the word epidemic is absolutely spot on. Online abuse, digital abuse is absolutely an epidemic. I think where we're leaning though here and where we're driving at is something that I've said before on the podcast. No one disputes that when they're in the pocket, and by the pocket, I mean sort of elements of altruism, activism, charitable excursions, charitable activity. And when they are given that single focus, they execute it reasonably well, if that is their single focus and if that is the one thing that they have to do. Before we went live, you said, and you've just alluded to it, you hoped Meghan would behave, and I like that word. That's not necessarily all that has happened while she has been away, has it? And this is something that we do want to bring in, because I think we just kind of tear our hair out and we get a bit frustrated with the idea that it's like close but no cigar a lot of the time with some of these things, isn't it? It's just we get there and it's like, in this particular instance, I would argue it's maybe one step forward, 1.5 steps back. It's not quite one step forward, 2 steps, but there's something else you want to bring in.
So far, a step forward and a half a step back.
Which I'd be
So
glad you've gone there. Yeah, yeah. And why is that? Why the half a step back? Because bring this in, because
well,
you had some interesting thoughts on this.
it's interesting that Meghan still can't resist platforming herself on social media and platforming her children on social media. And Tom was critical of this, and this I agree with him about. You cannot go on a stage and talk about the digital harm that is done to children while at the same time shooting out an Instagram with your daughter sitting in front of you in your very beautiful wardrobe while you're taking a selfie in your Gucci suit. Obviously, what Meghan is doing at the moment, and I can see her positioning screaming from her Instagram platform, and Meghan is starting to spread the word on her new positioning, and it's screaming at me. And I read her quite well nowadays because she jumps from position to position so sort of scatteredly that it's usually on her Instagram that you can kind of go, okay, this is what you're aiming at right now. And she's really going for the mama position right now. So, and she seems to be using Lilibet, a lot more than Archie, which is something else that's being noted by commentators. Now, her use of Lilibet and her featuring of Lilibet at the same time as her going and speaking about the effects and harm of social media on children is, to my mind, a terrible judgment. She should never have posted that image of her with her daughter. And there's something else that she's doing, and I've alluded to it before, and other commentators like Shauna Kay and Paula Froelich have talked about this too. What she seems to do is excuse her posts with her children by saying that she is not showing their faces, that she sort of shows the sides of their faces or the backs of their heads. And a lot of commentators have made the point that to do that is almost like teasing the bad actors who are on the internet. It's almost something that's setting out a challenge for those who are disposed more evilly towards children. And they don't think that that is a very wise call. I personally think that they should avoid using their children at all. Certainly, it'll be interesting to see how things work with you, Lyle, as Arthur grows up. But certainly with my son, he does not want me posting him on any social media platforms, and I do not. I respect his wishes. But he's been like that since he was about 8 years old. Just every time I've taken a picture, and I'm sure a lot of parents will identify with this, like, don't take a picture, and like, put your head down, and why? Let me just take a picture. It's a memory for me. And it's like, don't post it, don't post it. I'm like, I haven't posted anything about you for the last 8 years. I'm not going to start now. But this is what children need agency over their own identity. And if that's what he wants, that's what I'm going to respect. But when they're in a position when they're so young, they cannot have a choice. It's incumbent on you as a parent, and a lot of parents do this, to play the safe game and not post pictures, or if you do post pictures, blank out your children. And a lot of parents do that as well. And this is where it sort of is stark when Meghan posts pictures of particularly Lilibet. Now, come at me if you like, but I just think that is not a very good thing generally. And certainly if you're just about to go on stage to talk about the impact and harm of social media and digital violence on children.
Hold it right there, listeners. We would just like to take this opportunity to say that we absolutely love recording this content for you. So please do like, subscribe, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. It really would mean the world to us. And if you've enjoyed this and other episodes, please do leave us a rating or a review or both, wherever it is that you are listening. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of this episode. This is really interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's a really interesting topic. And actually, it's really interesting that she has spoken about this and spoken about it at the World Health Organization and received what she received as well. I mean, the comments are going to be alive with this, but my wife and I, not very regularly, but we do post photos on our Instagram and things of when we're out on days out and things like that. And I'm not saying for a second that I in any way disagree with when I see friends of mine blanking their children's faces out. If anything, without giving too much away, I have reason to completely understand that and absolutely advocate for that because of things that have happened since
And
my
I did
son.
when Arlo was a baby as
Yeah.
well. That's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
problem.
yeah. But I think the point you make is a really good one, which is that obviously to be absolutely defiant and direct and very, very clear in speeches like this and in their advocacy for safety online for young people and for children. And then to your point I won't go into as much detail as you just did, but to the word excuse is one that is flying around, like, excusing the use of images and excusing how they're being choreographed and how they're being put together. Again, if you're being as direct and as clear and as defiant in one strand of what it is that you're doing, then you should be, many would argue, you should potentially be as clear in your actual own behavior and what it is that you do. A slightly different angle, if I may, which we may then bring this back into, though, is you mentioned positioning herself as the mama, as the mother. Perhaps credit where credit's due, and we have been giving her credit in this episode so far. Does the speech at the World Health Organization align with that positioning, if anything? Because
I think she thinks it does. And in a way it does, because every parent is concerned about their child online. So I think she thinks it is in line with that mama positioning. I just question her, what's the word, a constancy of positioning, because you just never know where she's going next, what she's going to be next. And, there are lots of different theories about, what's her next line, what's the next thing she's going to roll out. Is she going to do more royal tours, or is she going down this World Health Organization ambassador route, or is she indeed going back into fashion? Because obviously the investment and the selling of her clothes through the one-off platform would indicate that. And this is my problem with her communications, is that she dishes out this position and then she sort of skips to another position, and it's impossible for any communications to kind of follow where her position is going to be. So I think she's a bit of a conundrum. But if she continues in this vein, and this was the big plus, the big thumbs up I gave her on TikTok over the weekend, because we did do a TikTok about Meghan and Catherine after our last podcast about Meghan and Catherine and the comparisons between the two. And I thought we were pretty level-headed about it all. And genuinely, any criticism from me about Meghan comes from deep frustration that she constantly trips herself up. And I did a TikTok talking about this, that, she's tripping herself up with, positioning herself as a working royal with Harry, but yet she's a commercial royal, if there is such a thing. Maybe that is the new definition. She's a commercial royal. And people just either want you to be royal or commercial. You can't do the two. And this was the Queen's, you got to be in or out on the Sandringham Agreement. The half in, half out doesn't work, and how right she was. But then the one thing I did think the big thumbs up for Meghan was that she didn't try to sell, so far, I haven't checked this morning, but I checked yesterday. So far, she hasn't tried to sell her outfit on the one-off platform. Now, if she has listened and heard that it's okay if you go out and, you're visiting, you're doing a red carpet job, you're going to a thing like the Met Gala and stuff like that. If you're doing stuff like that, great, sell your outfits. If you're doing something that is supposed to be philanthropic, or, just genuinely helping good causes, then selling your clothes off the back of that doesn't wash. I think she's got that message. I'm hoping and praying she's got that message, because that's a big thumbs up. And this is the problem I have with certain critical commentators, and I'm not naming names here, but you've got to call out the good things when she does something properly that you've been criticizing and then she has heard. You've got to be fair and say, well done. That you got right. Now, some commentators have gone, well, she was, she hasn't done it, but, it doesn't make any difference that she hasn't. I think that's a bit mean-spirited. I think that she should be given the thumbs up and say, okay, you're on the right track, Meghan. Keep that up. Maybe dial down the Lilibet posting for a while.
When you said commercial royal there, I just thought commercial royal sounds like that's like a brand of cruise liners. It's like commercial royal cruise lines. Other cruise liners are available, of course.
Yeah, Meghan and Harry performing live on your latest cruise ship. I can see them now launching with Richard Branson, their commercial royal cruise liner.
We are, of course, joking, but this is, I think, where we're going, isn't it? As we hope, that is obviously that's pie in the sky, and that's tongue in cheek. But we hope that like a version of that is not then forthcoming. To your point, Jackie, this is good. This has been really good. This last excursion of hers has been really, really good, and you hope that sort of form continues. And if anything, it's sort of maybe this. I mean, this is purely speculative. It's not even maybe. It's purely speculative. Recent trips by the likes of Catherine over in Italy and obviously Charles over in the States, and the way those were executed were hallmarks of that, albeit obviously the little bit posting and things. There were hallmarks of how it was communicated. It was very clear. People have been very impressed with how she spoke, the structure of the speech, the passion with which she spoke. Is a problem she has, and maybe this is actually specifically a Meghan problem. We often speak about Harry and Meghan sort of duality and their comms as a couple as well as individually, and their lack of consistency and their sort of pivoting from position to position. But I was reading before we went live on this episode an analysis of this speech and her speech in Geneva. And some media outlets, which I won't name, but some media outlets couldn't help themselves when it came to commenting on what she was wearing whilst they were talking about her speech, when in actual fact, really, you and I here today are speaking about the impact of the speech and how this was good stuff and this was a good thing. Is that a problem that she encounters? Is it a problem of her own making because she's done this before? Is it a problem her team not getting their heads round? Is it a problem she's propagating? I just find it a bit confusing because when Catherine went to Italy, I heard about her pasta making class. I heard about her visit to schools. I
think it depends on the channels that you're tuned into, because there was a lot of talk about what Catherine was wearing. No, there was a lot. Indeed, her choice of trouser suit, for example, so that she could kneel down and get face to face with the children, so she was wearing the sort of clothes that enabled her to be more kind of empathetic and one-on-one with the children. So no, I think you won't be reading women's fashion channels. I think every woman, and actually I would say men, there is sometimes commentary on Charles and William's choice of not as much of clothing. No, I think that's just a necessary evil of being a worldwide personality and using your platform. I mean, Catherine does it incredibly well. I mean, she's actually made the point that she doesn't post or tell people about the designers that she's wearing because she doesn't want the focus to be that. She knows the focus will always be on it, but she doesn't want that attention. But she will represent British fashion. So, in Italy, she was carrying, I think it was a Aspinall bag or an Osprey bag, and she was wearing a favoured British designer for her suit, the blue suit. So, yes, I mean, Catherine did that. And also Meghan did that as well. When she was down under, she was wearing Australian designers as well. So, I think they're both very cognizant of the impact of their wardrobes. So, and that's something I talked to The Guardian about when it came to the way people dress and the message they send. And this is where the royal family get it so right. And this is why, again, Meghan has come in for a lot of criticism for selling her outfits, because the sort of outfits that will sell will be outfits that are more accessible, let's say, to people. The ones that will make a difference to her bank balance will be a bit toppy on the price, right? So again, she'll come in for a bit of criticism for that, which is like, she's only going to make $5 on something. She's got to sell a lot of it. And so she's going to sell, make $200 on something and sell a few things. Do you see what I'm saying? So yes, this is why she's coming in for quite a bit of criticism on the fashion choices.
Before we go any further, we would just like to tell you about a brand new podcast from the creative minds behind Where Pop Culture Meets PR. By fans and for fans, Podround discovers and curates the best episodes from across YouTube, Spotify, Substack, the whole pod landscape, and delivers the ones worth your time straight to you. Serving up different genres and different voices from different corners of the globe, Podround is the one-stop shop for podcast lovers. That is Podround, available wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of this episode. Is there a hope? I think actually what we're hoping now, and this is going to be a prediction I ask you for, is there a hope that certainly at time of recording, we haven't seen any evidence of this, that perhaps this passion, this position, this area of not just Meghan's, but Meghan and Harry's activity of their work, is there a hope that maybe, just maybe, they're reading the room when it comes to how things are translating, how things are working? Obviously, working royals, the actual royal family, the royal family who haven't taken a step back, they've been doing great things that are being analysed all over the place and analysed very, very well and received very, very well. No sooner do we see Charles, we see a Harry intervention in some way, a Harry article, then we see Catherine, then we see Meghan off in Switzerland. Timing's obviously very interesting, but is there a sense, are we getting a sense that maybe they're starting to position themselves there, or is there just no way of knowing? Because again, in a week's time, we could see something completely different happen.
I still don't think that their timing is optimal, let's say. I think that they are still ubiquitous, and I think that's an issue. I think that they do seem to pop up every time there's a positive royal story. It's almost, the pick me banner goes up again when they put it this way, because we know that they are not on great terms with the royal family. It's very obvious that there is a tit for tat going on in terms of timings, and some people would say it verges on cruel or mean, particularly when Harry delivered his anti-Trump rhetoric in Ukraine just before Charles went to meet with President Trump for a state visit. So some people would almost go as far as to say it's out of meanness and spite. I think it's existential for them. That is where I think that they're being driven. I think that if you dig below the surface and you listen to a lot of people who are commentating on them, like great biographers like Tom Bauer, everybody is saying that, they're spending at least $3 million a year. They don't have the money to support that lifestyle, so they have to earn money. And so I think that a lot of that is their ubiquitous appearances are driven by their need to make money. Now, a lot of people say that's their choice. If they want to live that Montecito lifestyle, they could easily downgrade and go and live a lovely, quiet lifestyle in Montana on a nice ranch. God, if I had that choice, wouldn't that be lovely? But I can see that there is some existential pressure on them. And I think that might drive some of these bad choices and might mean that they are more prevalent as we see them in the media. And I'm not sure that that is the right strategy for them. I think they need to take a big, deep breath and step back and decide on their timings, because they will continue to come up against a barrage of criticism if they don't start to position themselves well. But I have a theory. And it's not a new theory, but I've been listening to commentators like Shauna Kay, and Richard Eden from the Daily Mail, and this is very much something that's driven by him. This is his platform. I actually agree that Project Thaw is underway. Now, Project Thaw is something that has been talked about and not necessarily confirmed, about King Charles's office trying to bring a bit more appreciation for Meghan and Harry and bring them back into the fold. I think, and I typed a question to Tom, I didn't get an answer, but when he was in Zurich, I said to him, do you think this is another example of Project Thaw in action? Because Meghan just going there, just doing that, not selling her clothes, in great speech about something that is very important and out. Could that be a sign of Project Thaw? Could it? I think it might.
It very well could be. I have I have an admission to make. I think it's time. I think it's time I made this admission to both you, Jackie, and to our wonderful community of listeners. Up until very, very recently, far too recently, I was absolutely convinced Project Thor was spelt like the god of thunder. And I tried to make it make sense in my head, like Thor had a really mischievous brother called Loki. Is it about the brothers getting
You're
back
not
together?
alone. Producer Felix thought that too,
Yeah,
and I
yeah. Well, I'm
corrected him
glad.
on
A
the show notes.
solidarity with producer Felix, and I won't tell Felix how I thought his name was spelled either. And I'm joking, Felix. I know how your name's spelled. But yeah, now I know. Obviously, Project Thor, the thawing of the ice. It's really, really interesting. I think all signs do. I mean, increasingly commentators are saying all signs really do point to that, an activity not just going on behind the scenes, but also in front of our very eyes. Things that are being reported on. Trips that are being executed. And actually, in a bit of a twist, we speak quite often about timing, and we do also speak quite a lot about visual PR and imagery. Bit of a twist here. I'd like to just very briefly talk and ask you, Jackie, about geography when it comes to Harry and Meghan, because I have a theory.
Let's
Here we
hear
go.
it.
The Australia trip didn't go terribly well, did it? I think we can all agree the Australia trip, the Harry and Meghan trip down under, did not go particularly well. They are divisive within the United States in which they live and spend most of their time. Over here in the United Kingdom, there have been legal issues surrounding security. There's obviously the ongoing issue of whether Project Thor is in action, and particularly Harry's relationship with his own family, but also Harry and Meghan's relationship. Meghan has been in Switzerland. Harry recently made a trip to Ukraine. Between the 12th and 14th of June, the Invictus Games will be taking place in Dusseldorf. Is mainland Europe the playground for a little bit? Is that somewhere that they and their team have made a decision to have a bit of a chance at, have a bit of a try at? Because quite clearly, certain other territories, they're divisive. There's been some criticism. There's been some analysis and some commentary. A lot of what they're doing recently appears to be in the European region, in that area. It's just a theory, but is that something that you've sort of noticed, you've seen a little bit of? And is that something that people would consider, that teams would consider, that Harry and Meghan themselves might consider?
Don't think you're too far off the mark, Lyle. It was something that I was mulling on over the weekend because there's talk about the fact that Harry would like his children to be educated in the UK. They're not quite at the stage where they could come back for that. But let's say they put Archie in boarding school and they want to be a small commute away. It would be completely out of the woods to think that they might make a little trip into Europe, where even Switzerland, let's say, which is, a great place to live. Who knows? It's not out of the realms of reality at all.
Certainly financially not the worst place to live, but I shall say no more. Obviously people can make their own, they might make their own, draw their own deductions there, as it were. Deduction, financial term. There you go. Here are we. But yes, I mean, it's certainly interesting, isn't it? It's certainly interesting, and I just found it very interesting in terms of the location of it. I know Australia trip was very recent, and so obviously we can't read too much into it. But I'm trying to sort of channel my inner Jackie Vors here as a sleuth. I'm sort of trying to put the pins in the board.
Yeah, I mean, the signs, they drop Easter eggs everywhere, don't they? The signs are there. But I think the problem with those two is that, and this is why we talked about their communications being so fractured, is because their plans seem so kind of fractured. They had Archwell, they shut Archwell down. They were philanthropists, and then they were commercial beings, and they do this trip to Australia, which polled really badly for them. And then the Invictus Games funding goes away. So that's putting the Invictus Games in jeopardy. I mean, they are constantly in this kind of like roller coaster of activities and of comms. And it's just so scattergunned. It's so difficult to get any consistency and continuity. And if they could just find that line, then I think a lot of things would fall into place.
As we do bring this one to a close, quite rightly, we've alluded to this earlier in the episode. Very occasionally, they do get things right, and they did get this right for the most part.
So far.
Did, so far.
With
Meghan
a little blip on social media. Let's not go too far down there.
There you go. Yeah, of course.
But,
yeah.
So far just for not sending the clothes off your back. So I want to give praise where praise is due, but it's still going to get criticism, and quite rightly for certain things, but it's edging the right way. Let's not get too effusive. Let's just see progress.
Absolutely. The speech was very, very good. the message itself is a very, very important one. And I'm glad that you and I are both aligned on this being a health issue, a World Health Organization issue as well. I'm glad we emphasized that. What do you think, our brilliant community of listeners? What do you think? What do you think of Meghan's appearance in Switzerland? What did you make of the speech? What did you make of her social media activity? What do you think the future holds? Do you buy into my perhaps slightly zany geographical theory? I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts. We both would. Of course we would. Please do get those comments in wherever it is you get your podcasts, particularly Substack. We've mentioned a couple of great Substacks throughout this episode, which we will include in our episode notes. Ours is pretty great too. Search Where Pop Culture Meets PR. Subscribe to us. Get those comments in. It's free. And we've got lots of great content going up on there. So please do get involved. Thank you so much for joining us on this, the latest episode of our wonderful pod, Where Pop Culture Meets PR. From Jackie in Vegas, baby. Very jealous. And from myself, take care of yourselves. It is bye for now.